I'm making a guess because I'm not very good at years and figuring out how many have passed and what year something happened. But about 12 years ago, I had the opportunity to visit the country of Sri Lanka briefly, just for a week to get a visa renewed so I could go back to India. But a lot happened in that time in Sri Lanka. One of the things that happened, I will remember forever. I wish I would remember the name of my gemologist that I met. I met a gemologist in Sri Lanka. Of course, Sri Lanka produces a lot of precious gems. And my gemologist, well, I don't think he saw me as someone who was going to buy a lot of gems because I don't think I looked that way. But he took a liking to me and took me along with him on a little trip that he was going to scout out some possible gems that he would purchase or that someone else was looking for that he was working with. And we went to, and I remember this, the Silverado Trail. I don't remember how we got there exactly, but we went to this road that stretched into the countryside called the Silverado Trail. And as we began to drive up the road, his car, which was obviously very familiar, would be stopped. And a guy would come running to him and saying, "Oh, I've got this. This is a really good gem. Do you want to buy it?" He did buy some, didn't buy a lot. But those gems were, they're just all over the place. And I remember us sitting down at a buyer's home, and on the coffee table in front of me was a big bowl full of gems, uncut gems. You could just grab them in fistfuls, and it was just amazing. All sorts of things. Rubies, topaz, sapphires, spinel was one that I had never heard of. And I was just fascinated by this. But in Sri Lanka, the usual method of mining gems was kind of crude. Knowing that there are gems in the area, you could just go into the forest, and I went in a little bit and could see places where people had dug an open mine, maybe no more than 3 or 4 foot deep. And from that, they had extracted, or not, some gems. Or they would dam up a stream and put a net, a sieve there, and catch the water flowing down, and occasionally it would net a precious gem. So there were all sorts of gems, but as I looked into gems a little bit more, I found out that there is a bit more scientific and a little bit more exacting way to go gem hunting. And one of the ways that is there is to use light, black light or ultraviolet light of different spectrums, and gems, which many of them are luminescent, fluorescent. I'm getting the wrong thing, it's sort of the same. Many of them are fluorescent, and the fluorescence of those gems, once that energy of that light in the correct spectrum is shined on them, would shine back. They would glow with a certain color and a certain brilliance. So this was one way that those gems might be found when they would be otherwise completely overlooked. It was a fascinating thing, but it pointed me to the truth that I was considering today, and that's why I remembered this story. In that light, the light of faith is what gives us our heart's desire, what opens all possibilities. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. I came up with a key spiritual truth. This is something that Vera Tate, a Unity teacher, this is kind of the way she put it. And here's my key spiritual truth. It sounds a little funny, but I'm liking it more and more the more I say it. The flashlight and the fingers of faith allow us to do what is seemingly impossible. The flashlight and the fingers of faith allow us to do what is seemingly impossible. If you've been with us the last couple of Sundays, you know, we've been discussing faith. And from the Christian scriptures, we have that definition of faith. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the evidence or the conviction of things not yet seen. But I think it's more than that. I think faith is the power, now hang with me here, the power to do something that is seemingly impossible. Remember, we have the 12 powers in unity, and the very first one of those powers is faith. And it is a power. It's not just a quality or a characteristic, it's a power. So today we're going to delve into the empowering nature of faith. First of all, we'll have to look at it a little bit differently. We're going to have a different take on faith. Faith is as defined in the 12 powers, is the ability to believe with confidence. But even beyond that, there is a metaphysical understanding of faith that I'd like to share from Unity's co-founder, Charles Fillmore. He describes faith metaphysically as the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. Think of that for a minute. The perceiving power of the mind with the ability to shape substance. That, in fact, is truly incredible. We talk about creating our own reality. We talk about the law of attraction, drawing to us things that we desire. According to this metaphysical description, and see if it resonates with you, there is an immense power in creating and bringing into our lives that which is seemingly impossible. Charles Fillmore went on to say, faith is a deep inner knowing that that which is sought is already ours for the taking. Notice that in his metaphysical description, the word mind comes up, and I just want to clear this up. Mind is not our brain. It's much more than that. Brain's an important part for us in our human functioning, in the reasoning that we often need to function naturally. But mind is an element for us in a human description, an element of our being that thinks, that feels, that perceives, that wills, and that even reasons. That's mind as we would describe it in the dictionary. But mind, again, as we look at it metaphysically, an underlying truth that's a little more helpful is that mind is God, if that term works for you, or the universal principle that encompasses all principles. We all know about universal principles. If nothing else, we know a simple principle, the law, as we would say, of cause and effect. Cause and effect. And there are many more, and one of them in Unity that we talk about is the law of mind action, that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So when we look at mind, we look at it not merely in that human perspective, but in that grand perspective of being the great principle or the great principles that are a part of the very nature of ourselves and of the universe. But we have two things here as we've begun to look at definitions of faith. One, an outside generator of faith, and two, an inside generator of faith. And that's what I want to go on and talk about. So the first thing I'll talk about, as in the title of this message, is blind faith. That's an outside generator of faith. That's the faith that comes to us from our ancestry. And we have an ancestral belief system that has come down to us, and unless we make some choice for change, that will be our belief. And we follow that belief and we live our lives by that belief, but it's kind of a blind faith. It comes from outside of us, from our history. Or it comes from our parents who tell us things like, money doesn't grow on trees, and that becomes part of our belief system. Or try again, and that's part of our belief system. And you name whatever it is for you that your parents brought up to you that were a part of your system of belief. But that's still outside of you. And then we have teachers and mentors who told us this and that and the other thing. Make sure that when you write in cursive, the loop goes up this far over the middle line. That's part of our belief system. I'm learning to write cursive again, but I haven't got that far as to following the rules and getting back into the belief system. So teachers and mentors. Also, wow. Part of our belief system is the political rhetoric that we listen to. Wherever you are, whatever side of the political spectrum you may be on, or whatever point on that continuum, if you're listening to one thing over and over again, if that's what's feeding into you, after a while, it becomes part of you. It becomes part of your belief system, but it's still outside of yourself. Somebody else told you that this is the truth. Somebody else told you that this is the right way to go. Still outside of you. Sometimes this is helpful, but not always. And even church doctrine. Don't want to step on anybody's toes here, but even church doctrine is something that is outside of us, something that's been accepted over time in the church. Things like, I believe in one God. I'm not debating with this. I'm just saying that's a part of our belief system, but it comes from outside. I believe in the Holy Catholic. There's probably some used to be Catholics here. I believe in the Holy Catholic Church. A blind faith, a faith that we accept from outside of ourselves. But the good news is there's also another kind of faith, something that's generated from within us, and that is an understanding faith. Now, that understanding faith, remember, when we talk about being generated from within, we're not talking merely about the human experience, but the very divine nature that is also our nature. We are both fully human and fully divine. So from within us, from that divine nature within us, faith, and a powerful faith, is generated. This faith that comes from within, this understanding faith, has a couple of characteristics. It knows the true nature of desire. What is it that you desire? Not just what you want, but what is it that you desire from the core of your being? Understanding faith has taken the time to look within and to know the true nature of its desire. And then it goes on to go beyond just knowing that desire to finding that underlying that desire is a divine idea, a divine truth, a divine law. And so we begin that trek to discerning what the divine law is that matches up with the desire of our heart. And then finally, this powerful faith that comes from within, this understanding faith, trusts in a divine supply that's unlimited. We've talked about this several times. What's holding us back is not that there's not enough supply, not that there's not enough of what we desire, but just that we can't access it. But as we begin to grow into understanding faith, we are able to access this, and we are able to know with power. This is a faith that resonates with our soul. Sometimes it seems to come from the outside. We pick up a book and we say, man, this is just what I needed. Or we open that book to the page, and right there is what we needed to know right now. Well, yes, that seems to come from outside, but what is more important is that it resonates with our very soul. And when I'm speaking of soul here, I'm talking about that melding of the divine and the human that is part of us. So that faith that generated within resonates with our soul, even if it comes to us or to our attention as a result of what we read. Or maybe it's a speaker. Maybe it's a very dynamic speaker that after you hear them, you just got changed. Remember, if you will, the story you may have heard about Myrtle Fillmore, who heard the speaker E.B. Weeks, or D.B., which is it? D.B. Weeks. Okay. And what he said was, I am a child of God, and God is not sick. Therefore, I can claim that as my truth. So that dynamic statement changed Myrtle Fillmore's life and cured her of tuberculosis. Same is true for us. We may listen to someone speak, and we may get connected with that resonating truth that comes right to our being and strikes us and galvanizes us into a change of a choice in our lives. And then we may have those people that perhaps they're fathers that are an example for us, that inspire us to such a great degree that an understanding truth that resonates with us, it connects. That truth is there for us. And this is where the power is. Go back to that key spiritual truth again. Remember, we talked about the flashlight and the fingers. The flashlight and the fingers of faith that allow us to do what is seemingly impossible, or to have what is seemingly impossible when we're talking about the desires of our heart. Remember the light we talked about when we talked about gems, the light shining and the gem glowing back. That's the same kind of thing with faith. When we're able to open ourselves to that divine idea that's just the one that we need, it's like a light of the a perfect place on the light spectrum that is shining on us, giving us the opportunity to say, oh yeah, and then we glow back. And therein lies the power. So we get to the part of the message that I usually try to get to. How do I do that? How do I do that? This is going to be simple, and I think you can follow it. I think you can remember it. That ultraviolet light is a radiation of sorts, and the glow back is a radiation of sorts. It's energy coming in, energy coming back. Emit the radiation of your desire. You'll need to spend some time with yourself to make sure you know what your deep desire is. But when it's there, let it out. I don't mean go and tell everybody about it. There may be people that you want to tell that to, but allow it to flow out from you. Allow yourself to know it and to put it out there. So emit the radiation of your desire. Shine the light of faith on it. Shine that flashlight of faith and let the truth emerge. It'll come back to you. It'll come out. There will be that glow that will come back to you, and you'll know that is so. You will know that you know. This is a spiritual practice, so it's not necessarily easy. It's not like falling off a log. But after that comes back, that spiritual knowing, that truth that is a faith that for you is both powerful and sure. then what you do is to listen for the inspiration of how do I let my fingers, the fingers of faith, go and find that prize, that which I desire. Got it? Emit the radiation of your desire. Then allow to emerge that truth that's especially for you, that resonates with your very soul. Let me give you a really everyday, this week example. What's today? Today's the 18th. In 10 days, Don and I will be married for 3 years. It'll be our anniversary, our 3rd anniversary. We planned just a little getaway. And I'm looking forward to that getaway. That's become a desire that I've known is really important for me. But a little bit of a hitch. I have a car that I recently took in that needed, according to the mechanic, $2,600 worth of work. I wasn't ready for that. Still had the desire. And from that situation came out an idea. Well, I know this is most important. Let me do this first. I can do that part of it. And then the idea, let me look on YouTube and see if there's any way I can do some of this work. And then the idea of, I think I can, who can I get to help me? How can I let that move forward? And so I'm happy to say, and my co-conspirator is here, Ram, that Ram agreed to support me in this. And Ram and I changed the rear struts on my Subaru Forester. And that desire that I have to take a trip in 10 days is now feeling a whole lot better. So, you know how if you remember the movie The Secret, it talked about you don't start with the big things, the law of attraction. You start with a cup of coffee. Well, maybe this is a cup of coffee kind of thing. Maybe a little more than a cup of coffee. But it's emblematic of the truth that there's power in faith, the faith that comes from within, the faith that when we are able to radiate our heart's desire with authenticity, that the divine radiates back and also inspires us to move ahead. In Buddhism, there's what's called the 3 jewels. I don't know if we have any Buddhist students or people who understand. And the 3 jewels in Buddhism are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I think they apply here. The Buddha, the divine idea, that divine message, Buddha being a divine messenger. The Dharma, the purpose in life, our sense of really connecting with it authentically. And the Sangha, the community, the working out of that in community. And by the way, I think it's very important that we take advantage of our spiritual community to work out those things that we're working out in our life and in our practice. So let me say that key spiritual truth once more. To maybe support his family. One way to do it, to find those gems. The divine idea, yeah, you can go out on the stream or this, but there may be another divine idea, and when that divine idea takes hold with power, it produces a fulfillment of that desire, because it's taken inspired action on that miner's heart to get the result that matches up with that desire. This is the track to a powerful faith, not just a idea that maybe at some point something is going to happen. That something that I can't see now will be a part of my life. But the certainty that everything is in place for me to claim that faith and that power to produce in my life what it is that I desire. And so it is. Amen.